Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and I'm here with Bill Sullivan, who is actually running with the Manitoba Party in the Rossmere riding, and I'm very excited to talk with him. I've had the pleasure of talking with him several times before. A very intelligent man, knows what he's talking about, so thanks for doing this, Bill.
Well, you're welcome, Josh.
So, can you tell our viewers a bit about your experience going back over the decades and your learning process?
My learning process started at a very young age, and it was called the sales of indulgences, and that's in the spiritual end of it. And at that point, I started to realize that there wasn't something quite right. And through that, it was years at age 14, and I always questioned things. Why? And I delved into them deeply. I read a lot of information, and it's funny how the spiritualism turns into the movement of society, the control of society, and how everything is connected. It's I guess the best way of me explaining that would be like a spider web. The spider's in the center, and she can feel any vibration of danger or movement, and she knows exactly where to go to correct the situation. So again, through the years of my research, it's been quite enthralling, quite interesting, and it's given me this knowledge base that for 30 years I banged my head against the wall trying to give a lot of this information out. And a lot of people right now, you call it the dumbing down of America. It's not the people's fault. It's the social structure that it has allowed that to happen. So when you discuss a lot of this stuff, people don't understand it because they don't have the knowledge. So they either they can research it themselves, or of course most of the time it's just a shrug of the shoulders, and then they move on to their easy life or their relaxing life.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, before we get into the Manitoba Party too much, I wanted to talk to you as a member of Freedom Force International. Can you tell us a bit about your experience with money and fiat versus, for example, the gold standard and silver money that you have been experienced with over time?
Yeah, that was quite an interesting voyage through my life as well, studying that the fiat currency, and one would want to wonder why people would even use fiat currency. But again, I call it the slow drip. Through time, people have moved on, and they've lost that knowledge base again. And fiat currency is basically usury. Is what happens is you're charged interest on your own worth. So a lot of people don't understand that. They take a $5 bill, they throw it on the counter. Thank you. Here's my change. See you later. But if you take a look at fiat currency, you begin to understand that that is one of the major contributions to our decline in our way of life, and again the social aspect of it, because money, it basically now controls everything, and that's the bottom line of fiat currency. It's meant to collapse at its inception, and the only thing is that when you get politicians involved in things, it's an easy avenue for them to just keep borrowing and kicking the can down the road. Our purchasing power right now, the dollar bill, is 98%, which means we have our dollar is only worth 2 cents. And of course, not just Canada itself. The United States is approximately 3%, and over in Europe, that thing is tanking. It's probably around a penny and a half. So people, if they don't understand purchasing power, that's exactly what happens. So now when we're going to the grocery store, and people are really finding this out, and they open up their grocery bag and they look in it and they say, geez, I must have lost half of my groceries on the way home. I can't believe that this cost me $60. That is your purchasing power that's destroyed. And coupled with that purchasing power, what you have is a major problem. Since 1975, which again is the point in which the Canadian government changed over to fiat currency and parked the Bank of Canada, the original Bank of Canada, in a shelf. So what's happened is our monetary wage structure has basically sat stagnant since that point. Of course, everyone looks at it and say, well, I've got raises. Those raises, they don't come close to the amount of inflation that the fiat currency has developed through time.
So can you tell us a bit about the silver standard that you tried to get government officials several years ago to understand?
Yeah, several years ago, it was the mayor was Glenn Murray at the time, and I took it upon myself. Again, just frustrated with people not knowing the whole system, and I wanted to truly help Winnipeg at the time and Manitoba. And I went down there and I discussed a lot of information. Glenn Murray wasn't there, but I was sitting there with his accountants, maybe CEO, I don't know who he was, but I was with him for about approximately an hour, maybe a little bit longer. And I went through the whole standard, the gold standard, silver standard, and I belonged to Norfed in back then, and I met with Vernod von Nothaus, who is also part of Freedom International. I met him down in Grand Forks, and we went through the process, and I talked to him, and I said that I was planning on trying to get things going here, a movement. And basically what it is if you understand bearer bonds and a bearer of a certificate, that's basically what it is. It was a certificate of paper, but it actually had all the money stored in a safe. So you wanted that paper exchanged, you could get your gold, you could get your silver, or you could even get the fiat currency. We had that set up so it could be interchangeable. So I gave that information out, I gave them the book, and it was about, I would say, a month and a half, maybe 2 months later, they got a hold of me, say, well, we're not interested. They did say that they had the buffalo dollar. It was basically a brass coin. But again, understanding the fiat currency system and central banking, the pressure has been put on all parts of society to keep that. And again, it's not like I'm looking at a gold and silver standard, because gold and silver was used as a standard of value of money way back when. But again, it's the political force that decides to maybe clip. It's called clipping the money. And all they do is they shave it off. So, fiat currency doesn't have any real value. It's only faith, whereas gold and silver does have some faith, but it can be manipulated as well. That I do put forth, so people do have an understanding that it is not the end-all be-all, but it certainly is. When you're looking at a situation right now where our monetary system is at a peak, if you look at it on a graph, we're almost vertical, and that's not a good sign at all. Vertical leads into hyperinflation.
Yeah. And we see it as basically a hockey stick at this point, and it's really alarming. I mean, there's a lot of manipulation, whether it's just fiat or gold standard. It's the fact that they're manipulating, there's usury, there's that interest, there's a debt, and it's hurting every individual, it's affecting every individual, and it's so important. I mean, we talk about poor people, every party talks about the poor, but they don't talk about why they're poor. They talk about what more they can do to add on to the regulations and the legislation in order to basically prop it up a bit longer while people are still getting more poor. There's more and more debt, and it's just complete insanity. And you've gone into it very well. I mean, I watched you do a presentation the other day, or yesterday actually, for the Moving Up Network, and you explained it extremely well, and you went over every aspect of it and showed the charts. And I mean, it should alarm anybody that is struggling to survive in Canada these days with the lack of money that they have, and they wonder, why is everything going up in price? Why is all this happening? And why is the government's legislation and regulation not fixing it? Because it's just building on top of a really big pile. And I wanted to talk a bit about the Manitoba Party, because of course you're running here in Rossmere, and it's a big election. Obviously, people are talking about getting Sellinger out. Finally, it's been many, many years from the times of him being a finance minister to the Premier of Manitoba. People are sick and tired of him, and you can't blame anyone for that, because there's just been lying, cheating, and corruption for all these years. And I wanted to ask, when you go to someone's door, when you go knocking on doors, what is the first thing that you tell them?
Basically, I go through the spiel. Hi, I'm Bill Sullivan. I'm a member of a new political party called the Manitoba Party. And of course, they look at me and I said, have you heard of us? And of course they haven't, because we've been backlogged with a lot of other issues to try and create this new party. So we're a little bit behind the 8 ball right now, but that's the process. I tell them who we are, and of course, a lot of people, they don't really want to know. 42% of the voting population. And again, I said I would never be a politician, ever. And here I am, I'm banging on doors as a politician, but I want to state this emphatically. I am not a politician because I don't believe it. I don't believe in politicians. That is the problem that we have right now, is the political system has been, we'll just say, it's been tainted. That's probably about the best word that I can say. And the people are really starting to see that. So I'm sorry for digressing into other areas here. I'm trying to put out my thoughts as I go. But what I find is there's 42% of the vote that the people are angry. I mean, when I open the door and I start talking politics, they don't even want it. They don't care who it is. There's a lot of viciousness, looks. People slam the door, tell me to bugger off. This is how frustrated they are. They don't even want to hear. And of course, then there are some people that I can try and say, and it's a good avenue. I say, well, I am not a politician. I understand exactly. And by the way, I'll state this right in front of the camera as well. I understood the system. I know what the system is. And it's not just the man that sits there in the front. There's other controlling factors that have caused this. So I realize that, and it's a perfect cue for me to explain people. And I say I'm not a politician either. And I haven't voted probably for the past 8 or 10 years. And I voted once or twice. And prior to that, I didn't vote as well. So I'm part of the 42%. But what has happened is this new political party is on board. We understand there's no way we are going to change the monetary system. That is left up to the people, what they understand or what the knowledge that they can acquire through other means, we'll just say. But Gary Marshall has done a lot of studying, and it's funny because he's been banging his head against the wall for 20 years, and the man has figured out an economic principle and system that it's unbelievable. And this is one. I was approached by Gary through Freedom Force International, through an individual by the name of John Snyson, and we had a nice talk, and he told me to go to the website. I watched that video in less than 5 minutes. I said, if you people are going to do what you're doing here, and you plan on promising the people this, I said, I'm in. And from that point on, I was in. I have been banging on doors, not just in Rossmere. I've been trying to collect signatures all throughout Winnipeg, and there's frustrated people. There's NDPers. They are totally upset with their own party. And again, so our platform is tax cuts. So we like to use the expression a small sliver of the greater pie. And what that means is when you start taking some of that tax burden from people and lessening it, what you're going to have is you're going to have people that are going to want to come to this province, small business, people are going to have more money to spend. If you can look at it in a perspective of the small sliver, if you take 5% or 10% away from someone, that gives them the opportunity to either put that and save it, or they can spend it into the economy. When people start spending, that economic engine starts moving. It moves very, very fast because there's a lot more people spending money. And the people say, well, how are you going to collect the taxes? Well, if you take a 2% rather than a 5%, what's going to happen is instead of 10 people buying something, you're going to have 20 people buying something. So at the end result, you're going to have the same thing. It's going to be the same 8% or 10%, but everyone, it's able to be split up amongst the populace. Now, what happens then is you're going to have big business coming in. You're going to have small business coming in. They're going to have the capability of running a business here and hiring individuals. So again, there's that economic engine. It starts moving and it doesn't stop. And people say, well, it's going to take a while. Well, if you look at Ontario and you look at Saskatchewan, this is what's happened. They decided to do the same thing, and it's booming there. So anyway, I can keep carrying on about the tax principle that we have and the economic theory. And by the way, that theory is there's a challenge for anyone to challenge what we have to say. And there's a $10,000 reward if you can dispute this fact. So that's how positive Mr. Marshall is, and he's debated with renowned economists down in the United States. So, he's no lightweight when it comes to this information. And so this, again, is why I jumped on the party. And our party platform is there's a lot of tax cuts. Your personal income tax, 10%. Business tax, 10%. We're looking at at of course, the bite phrase 8% to 5%, and personally, that's just a piece of candy. That's a bite phrase compared to the rest of the platform. And another thing that I've noticed when I was out canvassing, it really turned my gut. I'm knocking on people's doors, and I'm standing there in front of a lady, and I asked her, I said, I'm in a new political party. I'm here to try and get you to sign this paper so we can become a party. And she stood there, and she started shaking and started crying. And she said to me, she said, it's not a good time now. My husband died. And of course, now I'm caught in a situation. A really bad situation, and what am I going to do? And I tried calming her down, and she said, well, I know my husband was going to pass on, but she said, I'm so afraid because I don't know where I'm going to live. I won't be able to afford to live here anymore. And these are the people that I'm bumping into, and it's not just one person, it's many people saying the same thing. I ran into some people down in the lobby, and I said, oh, good afternoon, how are you doing? And their heads went down. In shame, they didn't want to talk about it, and I just figured that maybe their family was picking them up. I said, oh, your family's picking you up, or your friends? And they said, no, Manitoba Housing's coming to pick us up. We can't afford to live here anymore. And the sad part is, again, I understand the monetary system. I understand what's going on, and the tax that's killing people. The only problem is that in an apartment, they're not spending a whole lot of money on that apartment. They're spending $700-800. Where are they going to go for less than that? I think you can figure that out. And it's not just one or two people, as I said. I'm knocking on doors. I've knocked on thousands of doors, and this is what I'm hearing. So the frustration of the people that don't trust the politics, calling them criminals, liars, cheats, snakes. So this is what I'm hearing. And then, of course, there are the cordial people, the people that do, belong to a party. They're very polite. They don't get aggressive or anything, and just, no thank you, I already have my party. Then that's fantastic. But it's the people that are frustrated that I see. So the Manitoba Party, if you look at a lot of the platform that we have, maybe you might take a look at it and say, this party, this means something. And as I said before, we're not like any of those other political parties. We've got PCs, we've got NDPers, we've got Liberals, and the reason we have them, they're frustrated with their own party, their own ethics, their own standards that they had prior. And now they're with the Manitoba Party because they want to change. They want to change something. Well, Manitoba Party, we're no joke. As Gary Marshall said, we're no joke. We got a lot of stuff going on, but it's you, the people. You're the ones that are going to decide on how we're going to change this. And is it going to change? Is it going to turn around immediately? Do you think that we're going to come in there with some kind of a fantastic platform? No, this is going to be a slow process. But it's a process in the making. And it'll give us a little bit of time to gather our thoughts and to get things straightened out politically, and hopefully you people will have a good understanding of that, and you'll back us in our endeavor.
And there's no question that you're very passionate. I know we could probably go on for hours and talk as we have before, and you know what you're talking about, and it's been very good talking to you over the last several months, Bill. And I've gotten nothing but, great messages about Bill over Facebook, where people said, this man named Bill from the Manitoba Party came to my door and he said this and this and this, and I've never had someone polite but as real and realistic and talking about the real issues as I have had when Bill came to my door, compared to these guys from the NDP, Liberals, Conservatives, etc. It's all about bringing things back to the individual, and I support individuals over collectives every time, and it's a very important election, and I hope people realize how important this is. I know in Alberta we saw the Wildrose Party came to prominence because people were sick of the same thing over and over again, collective coercion, and I know it's something that more and more people are learning about, and it's important. It's more important than ever because we are more controlled than we've ever been before, and it just keeps building and building. And when people are looking for the idea of freedom, the message of liberty, the message of the individual, I know I've been getting the same messages again and again. These guys from the Manitoba Party, they seem to know what they're talking about. They seem to not be as concerned with the shallow talking points and the thumb and fist kind of attitude, and more about, this angers me. This infuriates me. I want to do something about this for you. And I think that's so important. So thank you very much, Bill, for talking with us. I'm sure we'll talk again. There's a lot more to talk about, as always.
Yes, Josh, thank you very much for listening to me, and hopefully you people out there that are watching this, you will support us. And there's a wealth of knowledge out there. All you have to do is open up and receive the information. And once you get that information, it might start you on a whole new path of understanding. Once that understanding starts, that's when you'll be the change. You know, I ran into some people. I was sitting in a van on the way home somewhere, and these two elderly gentlemen were sitting there, and the next thing you know, they started talking, of course, about the money and how they can't afford things, etc., etc. And as I was sitting there reading John Snyson's book, I decided, well, here's my moment, and I showed them and explained a lot of things. And the sad part was, they said to me, you know, we need a Robin Hood. And it kind of blew me away. It says, yeah, you need a Robin Hood, but have you really realized what you said? You're waiting for someone. You're waiting for a hero to come. Maybe the hero is you. Maybe you're the Robin Hood. So this is my message. All I am is a conduit of an expression to people, to give them an understanding that it's not me, it's not the other individuals of a political party, it's you understanding this information, and you're the ones that are going to change things. But as I said, the 42%ers that are out there that are so angry and upset, we need you to start opening up to understand that we do want to help people. But again, it's you. You have to make the decision. If there's no decision made for the Manitoba Party, nothing's going to change. It'll just get worse.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Absolutely. It goes back to that old Gandhi quote, be the change you wish to see. Well, thank you very much, Bill, and we'll be talking more with Bill and others from the Manitoba Party soon. Remember, the election is April 19th. It's going to be a big one, so buckle up. It's going to be a crazy ride for all of us, and whether we vote or whether we don't vote, it's going to affect us one way or another. So stay tuned for more from World Alternative Media.
Thank you.